Hey, what's up you guys, this is SGB618 here, and today I want to talk about Nintendo and Sega and how they're treating their retro games. As we all know, Nintendo is pretty unreasonable and pretty confused when it comes to bringing over older games on a modern platform. I think we've seen this through how they treated 3D All-Stars last year. It was just really minimal. It was just straight to the point, the games, and that was that. Mario 64 wasn't even in widescreen, and it was only available for a limited time. Fast forward to now, yes, we are getting N64 games on the expansion pack, but once again, it's only a handful of N64 games, and on top of that, look at the price you're paying for all of this. I already made a video about the expansion pack, so I'm not going to go too much into detail with that, but what I wanted to do in this video is go back and forth and compare Nintendo and Sega's approach when it comes to retro games and retro game collections, because I think we can all agree that Sega in this modern day and age has treated that a whole lot better than Nintendo has. Lots of people have been begging Nintendo to bring back Virtual Console because, well, you literally pay for them like they're modern games. Obviously they're not at the same price point, but you can keep them forever and you can play them whenever you want, and it's not tied to an online subscription service that isn't very good. Sega's been doing a pretty good job over the years though. As we all know, they've put out a ton of Mega Drive collections, a ton of Sonic collections, and even a couple of Dreamcast collections as well. So Sega is definitely hyping up a lot of their older games, and even if you look at the App Store and the Google Play Store, they actually bring over quite a few of their retro classics and even some of their retro franchises on these platforms as well. I think it's so cool. And overall, I just don't think that Sega is very scared or insecure to sell and promote their old games. I think that they're very smart, in fact. Sega has been doing this for years, and they're actually one of the most famous when it comes to that. Their collections typically do very well, and a lot of people actually get into Sega, more specifically their older titles, because of collections that came out years after the original release. I'm literally one of those people. One of the first games that I ever played was Sonic Mega Collection Plus on PS2, and that was my first ever experience with Sonic the Hedgehog. And ever since then, I've been into Sonic. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo does focus on their history every now and then, especially in games like Super Mario Odyssey. There were a ton of retro Easter eggs in there, and obviously there was retro Donkey Kong in there, which was a very nice touch. Even in terms of the music as well, they're constantly remixing old tracks. Even in games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where they brought over Excitebike and literally remixed its tune to make it feel more like a Mario Kart 8 track. You see what I mean? So Nintendo is aware of this, and they're also aware that people really want to still have access to their older titles. We know this through them bringing out Virtual Console on their older systems, and also obviously bringing in these retro games in their Nintendo Switch online service. So there isn't an excuse that Nintendo has no idea what we want. They're aware that their older titles are loved to bits, and a lot of their fans have a ton of nostalgia towards them. So for Nintendo to basically completely destroy everyone for emulating these games is annoying. Now, yeah, it can be deemed as annoying for Nintendo for their player base to be emulating games that they made back in the day, but one, they're not profiting off of those games anymore, because obviously they don't manufacture those games anymore. If you see these games chilling at GameStop, or if you're in the UK like me, Game, or even CEX, that money isn't going back to Nintendo. That money is going back to the company that's holding most likely the second-hand version of that game, because once again they're not being manufactured. My second point, Nintendo is there complaining about emulation of their older titles, but yet they do not bring over these games to the consoles. And if they do, they either put paywalls in there, unreasonable prices, or just unreasonable hurdles to do so. Now yes, Sega doesn't actually put out consoles anymore, so obviously they're playing a slightly different ball game to Nintendo. Also, gotta consider the fact that Sega games aren't just exclusive to one platform anymore. They're actually, you know, they cross over platforms. Like you can play Sega games on PC, you can play it on Nintendo platforms now, and you can play it on PlayStation and sometimes even Xbox. So I guess that the coverage is kind of more in Sega's court here. But I'm not talking about selling more than Sega, I'm talking about treating retro games in the same way as Sega. In terms of retro games, Sega knows what games to put out, and they know what games people love, because most likely due to nostalgia, and they do it. They always deliver on it, and people are always happy to play their favorite Sega classic game on a modern system. I think even the Nintendo Switch has helped with this as well, because they can literally play a lot of these Mega Drive classics on the go, thanks to Mega Drive Classics and the expansion pack. Yeah. Nintendo, you do realize, right, that if you re-release your old games officially, then you can profit from them again. Literally, you want to resolve the whole emulation issue, actually provide games for your service, and then people will stop. One of, if not the biggest reasons as to why people emulate games is because their favorite video game companies don't always bring out their favorite game from back in the day on their modern system. They look at that and they say, nah, forget that, I'm gonna find my way to get it myself for free. You see what I mean? So if you want to rectify that, actually deliver. I mean, I'm sure that it wouldn't stop it completely, but at least the process will go down. The biggest reason why people are emulating Nintendo games right now is because, well, they don't treat their retro games like Sega does. Sega is more than happy to re-release their old games every single console generation, and they've been doing it for years. They're constantly celebrating their old games, and they're constantly trying to get new people into their old games. And because they're officially re-releasing their old games, they're still profiting. With Nintendo, I don't know if they want us to completely forget about some of the games that they released in the past, or they just want us to look straight into the future and just completely ignore all of the old stuff. Obviously, they're more than happy to re-release NES and SNES games. I guess that's because they involve less work. Literally, Nintendo is losing money right now because people are emulating games. And there are so many easy solutions to this problem. But the biggest one, Nintendo, is just hit the red button and release them all. Just release them. You don't have to completely remaster every single old game. You don't have to make everything from the ground up again. Just bring them over. I don't think it's that hard to do. Sega doesn't even manufacture consoles anymore, and they're doing a better job than you. Just to close out this video, Sega is actually a very good example of how an old school video game company embraces the older titles and constantly brings them back into the new modern generation of gaming. Nintendo, on the other hand, still has a long way to go in terms of bringing over games. And quite frankly, them not bringing those games over is really hurting them in the long run. Currently, they're in a battle against emulation, and yet they're losing that battle because they're not willing to provide the thing that causes emulation. Wow. But there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts and opinions on Nintendo's way of providing retro games and Sega's way of providing retro games, and just their attitudes towards it in general. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. Please comment down below your thoughts on the points that I made in this video. Did you agree with them? Did you not? And here's an interesting one. SNES or Sega Mega Drive? Which console's better? Let me know and I'll be very interested to know. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.